Alright, spreadsheets. What do we use spreadsheet for? We use it for preparing budgets, payroll, financial statements, invoices, carrying out what if analysis, forecast modeling, and so on. So basically any form of calculation. Remember, spreadsheet is made up of rows and columns. And the intersection of a row and column, we call that a cell. Why do we use spreadsheet? Well, it allows us to do fast automatic calculation, and we use what is called a formula to carry out those calculations. Remember, formula is a calculation that you are going to create. So for example, like this here, A1 plus A2, 1 plus 2 is a calculation that you are going to create. That is a formula. What are the features of your spreadsheet that you should remember? These terms here. Spreadsheet and worksheet could be used interchangeably because that refers to the actual sheet. But when you see the term workbook, where is that? Yeah, when you see the term workbook, that would usually refer to the entire spreadsheet or the application file. Excuse me. Now, what else? What is the active cell? The active cell is basically a cell with a green bar. A cell with a green bar. So, like you see here, a cell with a green bar around it, that's indicating the cell that you're currently working on. What is cell reference? Cell reference is basically using the name of a cell to create your formula, to create your calculation. You're using the name of a cell. So whether that be A1, BZ10, that is called cell reference. You're referencing the cell. What are our types of data in spreadsheet? We have labels and we have values. Labels refer to text, alphabets, and values refer to basically all numeric data. So as mentioned, label refers to all text, value refers to all numeric data. Default display, remember text is going to be on the left and numbers are going to be on the right. Formatting, what are the types of format? We have align left, align right, center, margin center. Cut, copy, and paste. Remember, when you cut and copy, it saves to a clipboard. It saves the information temporarily, and then you're allowed to paste that information. How do we autofit? You put your cursor between the two columns, the line between the two columns, and you double click on it. When the cursor changes, that allows you to autofit. When you see hashtag, what does that mean? It means that the value, which is basically numeric data, cannot fit inside of the cell because the width is too small. So it's not showing you the full data. Whereas text or labels, that would extend into the next cell. But if there is data there now, it would basically cut it short wherever the width would have ended. What else? So remember I said a formula starts with equal sign. It's a calculation that you are going to create. These are operators here. Now a function is a built-in formula. It's a built-in calculation. So the operators are already built in. So anytime you see a function and it has operators inside of it, that is wrong. It should not have operators inside of it. So we already talked about autofill. Oh no, we didn't talk. Autofill is basically copying your formula to another cell. So that small dot at the end of your active cell That is the autofill option there. What is a range of cell? A range of cell is basically a group of cells. The range is going to be the top left to the bottom right. That's going to be your range. Top left to bottom right. Remember, you can't name a range. Give that range a name. You can't name a cell also. How do you name it? You use the name box. What is title lock-in? Title lock-in basically freezes a title. It freezes a row. It freezes a column. So when you are scrolling, you can still see that column, or you can still see that row, so that you can continue to put information in your document. Remember, if you have questions, let me know. So we have different methods of creating our formulas. We have using the value, using the cell address, and we can use both. What are the functions that we have? And remember, formulas follow BODMAS. We have the average function, which gives us the average. Count A, remember that only counts letters. Count only counts numbers. And count if counts based on a criteria. If a certain value meets that criteria. Date gives you the date based on a set of values, and you have today, the today function, which gives you today's date. You have the if function, which is kind of like in programming, you have your if condition. You have a test or a criteria, and based on that, you're going to get a true value and a false value. And remember, we could have a nested function, basically a function within a function. Nested basically means putting something within something else. Max gives you the maximum value. Min gives you the minimum value. PMT is used to calculate your loan repayment. Excuse me. PMT is used to calculate loan repayment. You need the interest rate, number of payment, and the loan amount. Rank gives you the rank of a value, and remember, rank.eq is the more updated version. Sum gives you the addition of the group of numbers. Vlookup looks for a value vertically, hence why it's called V, because it looks for the value vertically in the first column, and then when it has found that value, it looks across in that row, pulls the value from the corresponding column, and brings it to the new location. So it looks vertically for a value and brings that value over into a new location. That is VLOOKUP. What are the types of addressing? Relative and absolute. Relative addressing, that is when you want the cell names in the formula to change. You want to change from A1 to A2 to A3 to A4 and so on as you autofill. But there are certain cases where you do not want the cell to change. That is where you use absolute addressing. Because, say for instance, VAT, discount, pi, and so on, as a person's birth year, they do not change. So, you want it to remain the same. What are the two methods of absolute addressing? You have the $sign method. I'm looking for that. Where is it? It's supposed to be in here. The $sign method, whereby you put the $sign before the cell the column name. So you put the $sign before the column name, and you put the $sign before the row name. So you got to be careful. They might trick you with cells that have very long names like BZX 152, something like that. So remember, it's before the column and before the row. That is absolute addressing. And the other method is giving the cell a name, the name range. Those are two methods of absolute addressing. You got to remember when you move, shift, and so on, how the cells are affected. So if you look at this example here, whenever you do something with a row, remember it only affects going down. It only affects going down. Now was above. So if you delete 5, 6 is going to move up. And if you insert something at 5, 5 is going to move down. So it only affects at that location. When you delete, it moves up. When you insert, it moves down. Similarly, when you are working on a column and you insert a column, it only affects to the right. If you insert, it's going to get shifted to the right, and if you delete, it's going to get shifted to the left. Alright, formatting. Formatting basically means to changing the style of your data. So for instance, you can change the currency, percentage, date, and so on, and add decimal, commas, and so on. Formatting also includes alignment inside the data. So you have the various alignment: horizontal alignment, vertical alignment, wrap text. That is used to wrap the text within the cell, so it doesn't extend out the cell, so you don't have to widen it too much. You can wrap around inside of it. Shrink to fit. Whatever is the width of the cell is going to shrink the data to fit inside of it. And we know merge cells group cells together. We can protect our documents, and we have various protections. What are various protections? Let me just open a document quickly and show you what are our various protections that we have. Yes, I need to open a document I already have. Okay, so when you go to info, it has various protections here. So you have always open read only, which is gonna open the document as read only every time you open the document. So like how you saw just now, I have to enable editing. Encrypted password, you gotta put open it with a password. Restrict editing, the person cannot make changes. Restrict access, you say who can view the document. Add a digital signature, that's kind of similar to adding a password. And then marking as final, that's gonna indicate that that's the final version of the document. Sorting your data, we know about what is alphabetical order, what is ascending, what is descending. So ascending is lowest to highest, descending is highest to lowest. Filtering, when we're filtering our information, we have the auto filter, which is going to be this funnel icon here that appears in place in the document. You simply select the arrow and what type of filter you want. And then you have the advanced filter. With that, you create your criteria. You say in a separate location, how are you going to, what type of data you want to filter out. So remember, for the advanced filter, you need 3 things: the original data, the criteria, and where you're going to output this filtered information. But remember, for the advanced filter, you can't filter in place, which means you could have filtered right in the original data. But in most cases, we want to filter to another location. What is a pivot table? A pivot table is used to summarize your data without altering the original location. So remember, you're going to create data in your spreadsheet and put it into tables. Your pivot table now is where you can group various data, rearrange it, and look at it at different angles and perspective. Summarize it in different ways without messing up the original table. You have a one-dimensional pivot table, which is only going to basically have either a column or a row, and then you're going to have two-dimensional, where you're going to have both column and row. What is frequency distribution? That's basically to use to group values together to see a frequency. So like for instance, you want to group, you have a list of years, like for example 1991 all the way to 1910. So you group it 1995 and 1996 to 2000, and then you see what happened between those years. So that's going to be a frequency distribution. Pivot chart, you can create that from your pivot table to represent that data graphically. Moving your pivot table, it deletes and moves just like any other table. Remember, your pivot table does not automatically update. You have to go and right click on it and select refresh in order to update the pivot table. And to delete a pivot table, you basically highlight the data. You select the data, highlight the data, and you press the delete key. Remember, charts are what automatically updates. So when you change the data in the table, which is used to create a chart, that automatically updates. The chart automatically updates. You don't have to refresh that. Now, what is the purpose of the chart? To graphically represent your data. You got to remember which type of chart is what type of data. Pie is to show relationship. Bar and column is used to compare. Line and scatter shows trends and change. And area is similar to line, shows the change, and so on. Two-dimensional chart has X and Y axis, and a 3D chart has X, Y, and Z. What are the parts of a chart? 9 is the title, 7 is your axis title, 4 is your data label, 8 is your axis title here also, 11 is the information for this axis, 10 is the information for this axis over here, 3 is your data point, 12 is the legend, 1 is your chart area. Area comprising the chart, and then plot area. So area comprising the chart, we usually call that the chart area, and this is the plot area. Moving the chart, so you simply right click on the chart and you select move. Now there is a page called the chart sheet, and the chart sheet is basically an empty page, a white page with a white background, no grid lines, where only a chart is going to be located on. Print in a spreadsheet. So if you use the print area option, it prints specify the block to be printed. So you can highlight, like say for instance, a certain part of the spreadsheet, and it will only print that part of that spreadsheet here. And then I already showed you about importing. Importing works the same way in all of these documents, all of these applications. Alright, any questions on spreadsheet?
Awesome.
Alright, so finally Word. Let's run through that quickly. Where is it? I think it's more back. Yeah. Alright, so what's the interface for your word processor? Well, at the top here you have your title with the name of the file. Over here you have your quick access tools. This is your ribbon, number 2. Above your ribbon is what you call your tabs, insert tab, home tab, and so on. 7 is your ruler, 4 is your working area, 6 is your scroll bars, and 5 is your summarized information, your status bar, which is going to give you some additional information. Now, margin is a space between the edge of the document to where you can start typing from. Why do we have a margin? Well, basically we have a margin because not all printers can print to the margin, and there's some cases where you might want to add additional information to that margin area. What are the common sizes of paper? We have letter size 8.5 by 11, A4 210 by 297, and legals 8.5 by 14. We have two types of orientation, portrait and landscape. What else? Editing text. Let's see. It's just normal cut, copy, and paste. What's type over mode? Type over mode, it allows you when you're typing, instead of the text to move or be shifted to the right, it types over the information, types over the text that is on the right hand side. Control C is shortcut for copy. We have various other shortcuts here. Control Z for undo, Control X for cut. What's the difference between save and save as? Save is used to save a new document, and save as is used to, save is used to save the changes of the document, and save as is used to save a new document or to create another version of the document. Save is for existing documents. We know as a font, basically the style of writing, but you got to be careful with what is the font size, and then we also have font style. So font is the style of writing, but we also have font style, which is where you're going to basically be styling the font, and that includes normal, italic, bold, underline, superscript, and subscript. We already know our various alignment. We have left align, right align, center, and then justified. Remember, justified basically touches the right and left margin. It adds space to touch the right and left margin. What is a tab? A tab is basically a automatic insertion of a certain amount of space that you're going to add to the document. What is format painter? Format painter is basically to copy the format from one information, being able to paste it to another text or so on. Line spacing, that's basically how many spaces between each line of your document. We have single line spacing and we have double line spacing, which is basically single meaning 1, double meaning 2.0, and then we have 1.5 and so on. What is indenting? Indent is basically when you use tab. We know about the various page numbering. What is find and replace? Find and replace allows you to find a particular text or so on, some part of data, and being able to replace it. The shortcut for that is going to be Control and G or Control and H. Control H. Yeah, Control H is find and replace, and Control G is go to, and Control F is find. So header and footer. Why do we have header and footer? Because we want to add additional information in the header and the footer. Where are they located? Header is at the top, footer is at the bottom. Therefore, additional information, like for example, page number, the letterhead of a document. What is a footnote? What is an endnote? They're used to add additional information. Instead of putting it in the body, it puts it at the end of the document. Like for example, when you're given the meaning of a word, when you're given additional information, you can put it in a footnote or endnote. Now, what is the difference? A footnote is at the end of a page, whereas the endnote is at the end of the document or at the end of a section. The only difference between the two is where are they located, end of the page or end of the document or section. What is a section break? A section break is basically going to allow you to section off your documents. This will facilitate you having different formats in your document, like for example different page orientation, different margin, different header, different footer, and even different page number. What are the various forms of section break? You have a continuous, next page, odd page, and even page. The only difference between all of them is where the next section is going to appear. The next section is going to appear on the same page, hence continuous. The next section is going to appear on the next page. The next section is going to appear on the next odd page. And the next section is going to appear on an even page. Creating tables. Why do we create tables? Because we want to organize our data. Columns. Columns are used to basically separate a single page so that we can create newsletters, newspaper, leaflet, brochures, and so on. So like you see here, we have columns on the same page. And what allows us to have different columns on the same page is our section break. So right here actually has a continuous section break. Reviewing your work. What is track changes? I can come back to that. Reviewing your work. The first thing when you're reviewing your work, you want to set your language. Why do you want to set your language? Because you want to ensure the right language is reviewing the document. We know there's different versions of English, so we have to ensure the right version of English we are using. So when we're using the spell check, remember red line indicates the spelling is wrong, and a blue line indicates a grammatical error. Red is the spelling, blue is the grammar. Green is a context. Green is a context. Red for spelling, blue for grammar, green for context. Your word processor has a dictionary, and that's how it knows whether you spelled a word wrong or not, because it checks against that dictionary. Thus, your word processor has a thesaurus, which gives you synonyms or the same meaning of a particular word. So if your vocabulary is low, it gives you similar meaning words. And it also has the grammar checker, which it tells you, gives you a blue underline. Next we have word count. Word count gives you a summarize of your document. It tells you how many pages are in your document, how many words, how many characters, how many paragraphs, and how many lines are in your documents. Next we have track changes. Track changes is used to track the changes of your documents. When it tracks the changes, say for instance you would have deleted something. When you delete text, it shows you the text red with the text crossed out. So you're going to see the text as red with the text crossed out. Now when you insert a text, it's going to color the text red also, and it's going to be underlined. So when you turn on track changes, it's used to keep track of the changes. It shows you what changes were made. So when you delete something, it shows it as red, and it puts it on a cross through it. Basically crosses it out, indicating it was deleted. But when you insert something, it's going to put an underline underneath it. Comments. What's the purpose of comments? It's basically to add additional information to the document. That's basically it. To add additional information to different parts of your document. And we already looked at the various methods of protecting your document. We already looked at combining. So combining, we have Word actually has a combine feature where you can merge two documents together, and that is the combine documents feature. When you use this feature, it merges two documents together and one takes precedence. One is going to merge over the other. So like if two persons are working on basically like a similar document, but they are like reviewing it and making minor changes, they can thus merge the two together, and tracking changes will be turned on so that they can know what changes both persons would have made. When you're importing, you can use a text file, you can use a rich text format file. Remember I showed you how to separate it with the delimiter. And switching between application, you use the shortcut Alt and Tab. Table of contents, that's basically used to show the layout of your documents. You basically select the headings, generate the list, linking pages together. You use Control and you select the heading in the table of contents so that you can take it to that location. How do you update a table of contents? Well, you basically go to the top of the table. You can right click on it or hover over it, and you're going to see an update option. There's two options here: update the page numbers only, or you can update the entire table. So if the page numbers only changed, you can update it, but if the headings change, you would want to update the entire table. Mail merge. What's the purpose of mail merge? If you're sending out a lot of letters to the similar format of a letter to a lot of persons, you can make use of a mail merge. Now, what are the parts of a mail merge? Well, you have what is called a primary document. The primary document is the original document. This is the one document that you're going to send out to everybody. This is going to have like a default appearance. Now, inside of this document is going to have what is called merge fields. The merge fields are going to be the unique information that is coming from a spreadsheet or a database file that is going to be merged with this document. Next, you're going to have a secondary document with the merge fields inside of it. Basically, this document, whether it's a spreadsheet or a database, this is going to have the list of unique information inside of it. So that's your second document there. And your final document is going to be the merge letter. So remember, the primary document could either be called the original document or the primary document. Then you have the secondary, or the database or spreadsheet with the contact information. Print preview, that's used to show you a preview of your document. Print range, you indicate what pages you basically want to print, how many copies of that print. In your Microsoft Word, you can create a form. The form uses what is called content controls, and these are some these are some of the content control that you can make use of: rich text, plain text, checkbox, combo box, drop down, date picker, design mode, command button. So these are all can be used as a part of your form. Before you can get access to the content control, you must enable the developer tab. And you can even use electronic methods such as Google Forms in order to create your form. And you can use the protection methods that we learned about to protect your document, and so on. And yes, that should bring us to the end of word processing there. And that brings us to the end of covering all of our topics. But if you notice, we actually didn't cover web page design. It's not much information, but you guys can still run through it because it's still gonna come in your paper one. We can actually let's run through quickly. That's the main points for web page design. What is HTML? HTML is basically the markup language, hypertext markup language that is used to create a website. Remember, a website is basically like if it's a document. Think of it like if it's a document. So what does HTML facilitate? It allows you to share documents or link you to other documents. So it allows you to access the website or link you to another website. A browser is what allows you to view a website, and these are some common examples of browsers here. What are the categories of website? We have a static website where the information remains the same. Editable brochure. We have a dynamic website where the content is going to change. E-commerce website, a website being used for business. And then you have a web application whereby some sort of software is running on the internet, basically as a website. What are the other categories of website? We have websites used for entertainment, corporate website, shopping website, information-based website, community building or social networking website, academic or professional website, personal website, mobile website, directory website. When you're creating a website, you plan for what content is going to go in your website, how to organize those contents, how the person is going to navigate on your website. Remember, a hyperlink is basically what is going to take persons to other pages of your website. It's a link that takes you to another location. What is breadcrumbs? Breadcrumbs shows you the path that you're going to take to access a certain section. So if you notice, you start from home, then you go to plants, then you go to potted, then you go to flower. That is the breadcrumb. That is the path. What is the URL? The URL is basically the uniform resource locator, which is basically the address of the web page or the path that you're going to take. Whenever you're creating a website, you have to ensure it's economical, and you have to ensure it is secure to protect the data of your consumers. Now, what is the general layout of a website? It's going to have a header at the top, a footer at the bottom, just like a normal document. Header has the website name, blog name, logo, company name, and so on. And the footer has any other additional information, copyright information, legal information, and so on. Sidebars, as you see here, these are used for navigation, and then the content, well, that's the main content of your website. So here we have a breadcrumb trail, or this can also be called a sitemap, because it shows you the layout of your website, the structure of your website. Whenever you're choosing backgrounds, whenever you're choosing colors, text, images, and so on, you gotta remember to look for visibility and ensure the color is not too bright, color is not too dull, it's readable, and so on. What is a hyperlink? What is a bookmark? A hyperlink can be an icon, image, or word, and it's going to open another file or document for viewing. You can either be directed to another web page, another position in the web page, or even open email, or it can even allow you to download a file and so on. A bookmark is basically to save the location on the page or a part or a particular page. So bookmarks are hyperlinks that jump to a different part of a web page. creating a website, remember HTML is one method of creating a website, and you can also use website builders, such as basically using a website to create a website, such as Webnode, Weebly, Wix, and so on. This is just basically describing how to use that. And remember some of the basic HTML tags. So HTML, that indicates the start of the HTML, and this is the closing tag of the HTML, indicating the end of the HTML language. Head is for the header tag. That's the heading of the website. This is the closing. This is to indicate you're creating a title. Background color, body background color, BG color, that's background, indicating the background color. H1 indicates heading 1. So if you see H2, H3, H4, and so on, that indicates headings. And if you see P indicates paragraph. So that's a paragraph tag. And that's basically it there. That's all of our content. Alright, so if you guys don't have any questions, I guess we're going to wrap up here for tonight.
No questions, sir.
Alright, good. Well, see you guys later today.